This episode of the Beer Bound Podcast is brought to you by Rolling Hops Beer Tours.
Hey everybody, Garrett here from Rolling Hops, as always joined with my partner,
Andy.
We're here to tell you guys about our virtual craft beer tour offering. With what's going on in the world, unfortunately, we haven't been able to run our historical craft walking beer tour, so we've pivoted to taking the virtual experience of craft beer directly to you guys. Wonderful for team building events, corporate events, even just a night out or in, for that matter, with your friends and family. And we're doing this online.
Have any questions about the beer tours or want us to tailor make an event for you? Just shoot us an email or send us a message on any form of social media. Rolling Hops, you can find us everywhere.
RollingHopsBeerTours.com is where you can get a hold of us, and we'll see you guys soon.
Cheers. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Beer Bound Podcast. We are excited to be joined by Ian Mills, owner of Five Paddles Brewing Company. Five Paddles Brewing was founded in 2013 and can be found in Whitby, Ontario, just east of the city of Toronto. The brewery is the expression of a restless curiosity, an itch to explore, and an ever-onward drive to learn more and make better beer. Five Paddles has brewed over 350 unique beers, ranging from style classics to more experimental. A few interesting ones available this holiday season, we think, include Saturnalia, a bourbon barrel-aged dark festive fruit and nut ale, holy cow, and Fashion Krampus, an Imperial Gingerbread milk stout. So we're really looking forward to learning more about Five Paddles Brewing Company. So without further ado, we welcome Ian to the Beer Bound Podcast. Hello, Ian.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us.
Doing great. Thank you for being here. Okay, Ian, can you start us off just a little bit about yourself and your connection to beer?
Well, you know what? I kind of have So I'm Ian. I'm one of the co-founders and owners at Five Paddles Brewing Company. We're a small brewery, but we try our best and try to make cool beer. We have been in the industry for quite a while. There were less than 100 breweries open in Ontario when we first opened back in 2013. We're coming on 9 years now doing this, which is amazing, and 10 years of there's usually about a year of planning before you open a brewery. But yeah, it started off pretty small, and here we are in 2021, and there were around, I've completely forgot, lost track of how many breweries are open now in Ontario, but I believe it's around the 400 mark. So in 10 years, it's really exploded around here. It's been pretty amazing to see where it's come from, and it's going to be pretty exciting to see where it goes. But me and beer, my relationship with beer, is very similar to a lot of people who really love beer and are in the brewing industry. I when I was very young, I was about 17 years old, I bought my first homebrew kit. Now, it wasn't for me, it was for my brother. He was 19 at the time. I did not realize that you could go into a homebrew shop at 17 and buy the ingredients, because they're technically not selling beer. But I gave it to him. He was going off to college, and I was like, hey man, this would be perfect. You can make your own beer. The sign said something like, I don't know, make 50 beers for $20, right? And I was like, this is a great way to save money, right? So I ended up using the kit, the homebrew kit, more than he did. And the first time, and I mean, these are just those crappy Cooper's kits. You open up the top. Yep. You just pour the goop into the bottom and, stir it with water. And, you hope you have something that doesn't turn into vinegar. But it sure does get the job done. It tastes terrible, but it really does the job. And I was blown away. I could not believe that doing something so simple made something that was, it was so amazing, that just kind of started it for me. Now, this is, when I was, a teenager, it was back in the 90s, and there really weren't a lot of homebrew shops around. So it was difficult to find ingredients. It was mainly Cooper's kits for a long time. But then I met the guys at a local homebrew club, and we started making all grain beer, and I fell in love all over again with making beer. And then, going through some of the classic styles and seeing what sort of, pushing the boundaries. Now, again, looking back, where we were when we first met, Bose was in its infancy. Steam Whistle, was kind of the biggest craft brewer in Ontario at the time. We had, GLB, Great Lakes Brewery was very big at the time, as well as Black Oak locally for us was a big one. And, we went to all these different breweries and we started touring them. And the one thing that I found was that when you went to these breweries, it was kind of amazing because everything that they had there, you could find at the LCBO. So part of me was a little disappointed because I wanted to see, like, the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. It's like, if you're making this beer, so good and you're selling it here, well, there's got to be something behind that door that, you're experimenting with, because that's what I was doing. And, I was constantly curious and constantly looking to see, what else was out there. And the craft beer scene was changing rapidly in the US. And, we kind of saw a niche and we thought, okay, we're going to give this a try. The idea was open up a very small brewery and not quit our day jobs, not put our houses up, not lose our wives while opening up a brewery. That being said, we all did, quit our day jobs. None of us have lost a house, none of us lost a wife, which is good. But we are working there full time, which is great. But it was really an expression of who we were as brewers. And I remember talking to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission when we were first looking for a license and saying, they said, well, what are your 3 core brands going to be? And I said, well, we're not going to be doing that. And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, we're planning on, brewing about 2 to 3 different styles every week, and, to maybe 15 in a month. Right. And they're like, oh, I don't know what that means. They had no idea. And, because initially, 10 years ago, it was build a beer factory and sell to the LCBO and beer store. And we were like, no, we're not going to sell anything to the beer store, nothing to the LCBO. No, kind of like, screw the man. I'm just going to sell it right direct to consumer. And, they didn't know what to do. So I just kind of said, oh, well, we've got these. I sent off a list of like 8 or 10 different, names that I came up with off the top of my head. And I said, these are the beers we're going to make. And then, I got off the phone and the guys were like, well, how did it go? And I said, well, you know what? I think we're good to go. Let's just start making beer. And we did, and we kept going. And yeah, it's well over 300 different styles of beer. And I mean, the landscape has certainly changed for craft beer in Ontario right now. And everybody sees it, there's not a single brewery that I can think of off the top of my head that you can't get, 6 different beers at, or, the majority of breweries at this point, you can get, a 12 or a 16 pack of all different beers. You can almost do an advent calendar from one brewery at this point, which is kind of cool, Mm-hmm. So I don't know whether we started, we opened up Pandora's box back then, but we did it. And, it's just kind of like this runaway train that we're all trying to hold on to and look to the future and be like, well, what's next? And geez, man, I don't know. The prediction for what's next right now, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll get into predictions in a bit.
For sure.
But yeah, 2013, I mean, it doesn't seem like that is such a long period of time. It's less than a decade, but you're right. In terms of the craft beer world in Southern Ontario, I mean, it seems like we're talking about 2 different ecosystems.
Absolutely. And I mean, Andy, like you had a beer there that was like, hazy as can be, right? And, I look at a hazy beer like that, and we did a West Coast IPA recently that was very clear. It was super hoppy, the way that, IPAs used to be, and but very clear. And I had somebody call me up that I'd known for a while, and he goes, hey man, I'm having this beer, and it's really clear, but it's still really hoppy and really good, but I don't know, if it was hazy it would be better. I was like, man, 9 years ago I spent all day every day answering emails and trying to educate people, saying like, well, we don't filter our beer because you get all of the flavors, and you're going to filter out all the oils and the proteins, and all those soft round flavors that you get. And when you're left with just that super filtered product, sure, it looks crystal clear, but you're missing all of these nuances, right? And I mean, that's what I did for years. And now I'm like, man, if I put out a filtered beer, people would be like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
People have grown accustomed to the haze.
Oh, hey, don't get me wrong. I love hazy IPAs. They are my jam. They really are. I'm a big fan of where we've gotten now with IPAs. That soft mouthfeel, the big oats, the wheat in it, the way that we're dry hopping, getting all of those, those oils to kind of linger around, but not wail around in the back of your, tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And I do, man. I love it. I love what we're doing with hazy IPAs, and I'm so glad it's caught up, because it was a hard slog. I remember being like, oh, well, we just made an English pale ale, and they're like, oh, it's so dark and it's so rich. I'm like, man, you can taste a little bit of these malts, and it's like a little bit of hops. What are you talking about? And then now it's like, the slushy beers and the smoothie beers and the hazy IPAs and the double IPAs and these pastry stouts, and it's like it's a totally different world. Like it's not even apples and oranges. It's like apples and baseballs, It's a very different thing.
Apples and baseballs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ian, in your role over spanning almost a decade, has your role at the brewery, has it changed at all? Are you doing kind of the same stuff that you were doing back in 2013? Can you give us a bit of
it's wildly changed, like when we first opened up, we were making 300 liters at a time. We had a space that was only 900 square foot. It was all into 650 ml bomber bottles. And now good luck trying to find a bottle on a shelf nowadays. It's all tall boys, right? So for better or for worse, I don't know what's right or wrong. Maybe we'll swing back to the bottle at some point, but right now the desired vessel is a can. But yeah, I mean, things do change for me, right? Like, most of what I do now is a lot of making sure that, the beer can get from our tanks to, people's mouths kind of thing. And there's, when we were first started, you have to do everything, right? At one time I was the only one working at the brewery full time. So I did everything. I did the brewing, I did the cleaning, I did the sales, I bottling, all of it, right? So over time, it does change. I still have to kind of jump in to help with a lot of things. The good thing, because I did do everything, I still can do everything at the brewery, which is great. So I haven't brewed in years, personally myself, which is, I thought, oh, I'm going to open up a brewery, I'm going to make beer every day. And, I haven't done it in years, but, it is what it is. You still got to get, but the great thing is I always remember, I read this quote by Julia Childs, and one of the things that she said, and I really kind of modified it for what I do, and it really rings true, and it does make sense to me. She said that she loves cooking. She loves everything about cooking. She loves the meal plan. She loves the grocery shopping. She loves the selection of the food, the prep of the food, the cleaning of it all, even just the plating, and also the cleanup, doing the dishes and putting the kitchen back in order. And that has a lot to do with the running a brewery. You have to be able to love everything, whether it be, drinking a beer or mopping the floor, all of it, you have to, find that wonderful joy in, and know that every little part that you do is making a big difference for everything that you do at the brewery. And it is true. And so I do find joy in, being like, okay, well, part of the brewing process is cleaning, and I do like cleaning up, and I do, I like, shoveling out the mash. I like to, even, consult with the design for the labels, or even what we're posting on social media. Every single aspect of it, there's still a lot of fun to be had with it. So, I do miss doing some of the brewing, because I do love making beer, but I still get to be a part of everything that we do there, which is great.
It's good to have your hands. Oh yeah, obviously, it's good to have your hands in everything. If you ever needed to jump back in, right? It's not like you need to be trained or anything. You just get right in there and do it. So.
Oh, absolutely. And any new person that we hire on, I'm like, listen, man, whatever you're doing right now, I've done it 1,000 times. So it's like, if somebody drops a can of beer, I'm like, man, I've dropped more cans of beer than you'll drink in a lifetime. Don't even worry about it. So yeah, it is kind of cool. And with my, my personality too, it's kind of fun because it's odd because I remember listening to there was a brewery podcast like 9 years ago or something, and it was one of the big brewers, and they had a guy on, and brewers tend to be a little bit more quiet, right? Like they don't talk a lot, answer in one word answers, and they had a brewer on there, and it was like, well, tell us what you do there, right? And it's like, oh well, I make the beer, right? And it's like, do you have anything exciting coming up? Anything that's really getting you, going? And the guy's like, oh, well, yeah, I think we got some barrels. And I was like, oh man, this sucks. Listening to this guy, and I'm a little bit more out there. So, part of, being, doing what we do, you get to talk to a lot of people. You get to, I can design my own events so that I can, I was thinking about, I have the microphone. It's like, you have to listen to me now. So, I do get to design my events that I can be the showcase and bring the good time to everybody. And it is something interesting because I always try and remind all of the new people is that everybody that's coming into the brewery, every single one of them, we're the beginning of their good time, and don't ever forget that we are the beginning of their good time. You had a bad week at work. Guess what, man? You're at Five Paddles and you're buying some beer because you're going to have a good time, with your partner or, the boys, or, you're getting ready to go out or a barbecue, or you're having your family over or whatever it is. It's the beginning of a good time. And, don't forget that. You have to really kind of remember, because not every day is a great day at the brewery. We are in the beer industry, and we do, as a result, there are the hangovers, and there are the days where you're like, man, I am withered on the vine and it's going to be tough, but you got to kind of grin through it and be like, all right, hey, you know what? Some new person just showed up, just heard about you for the first time. Their friend was raving about you at work, and you got to bring it. And you got to be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, this is going to be a good time. And I'm going to, show you how great it's going to be with Five Paddles.
That's awesome. I love that mentality. I'm a glass half full kind of guy, so I can certainly resonate with that. That's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. Could you tell us, Ian, about Five Paddles? You were mentioning this a little bit prior to us getting started. Where did that name come from? As well as, I have another question, but where did Five Paddles come from?
So yeah, Five Paddles. The story is that there were 5 homebrewers that we had met at the Durham Homebrewers Club, and when you're making beer, you use a mash paddle, right? And it does have kind of a more Canadiana feel to it. I do a big portage every year with my son, so then some of the other guys, they've been in canoes before, so but the Five Paddles was that. It's like we all brought our own paddles and our own recipes to the brewery. Over time, hey, business is business. There's 3 of us there now, but it's a very incredible place to be. It is interesting who you get to talk to. The home brewing community is really cool. They love to come in and talk to the small brewers. Funny enough, just that small little thing of putting a canoe paddle into our logo, it resonated with me because of the camping and the portaging that I do, but it's shocking how many people it resonates with. It really is this Canadiana thing of going canoeing and going paddling, and it is really neat.
Yeah. And tell us about Whitby. Is that location particularly important to you, your background? Why are you guys there and not another location
anywhere else? Yeah, like somewhere bigger, so Whitby, it's funny because when we first opened, again, I was alluding to this earlier, there weren't a lot of breweries around. So in all of Durham region, which is the greater region just kind of east of Toronto, and it encompasses, now I know how large it actually is because of the deliveries that we've been doing since the COVID, but it's several cities. And there was one brewery that was operating, but they were direct to LCBO beer store, and they did the house beers for Say What in downtown Toronto. So they were County Durham Brewing. And, you know, Bruce, he has that same story. 3 home brewers opened up a brewery, but they did it 30 years ago. So Bruce is one of the founding members of the Ontario Craft Brewers Association, which is very cool. And he's an amazing guy, and I've always loved his beer. And, you know, but we can never get in to see his brewery. He has the lock the door and keep everybody out kind of attitude, which I get, because man, if you get stopped in the middle of you know running your sparge out, it can really screw things up. But anyways, I digress there. But at the time when we opened, there was 0 breweries in Durham region, none, and we were like, there are hundreds of thousands of people out here, and they're all like us. They want to have good fresh beer, and they want better options, and not just what the light lagers and the the light pale ales. They want something better. So we were kind of looking around in different areas. I just live about 30 minutes north of Whitby, so for me, I kind of pressured everybody to open up in Port Perry, but that never happened. I wanted to walk to work. That was my dream. But yeah, like Ed lives in Whitby, and Mike lives in Oshawa, so just only about a 10-minute drive. And we were able to find a really good space north of the 401. It was close to, you look in the future and you go, well, we're going to need to be close to the 401, because our giant tanker trucks of beer are going to be running into Toronto and out to Ottawa, once a week. I mean, that hasn't happened yet, but maybe one day. But yeah, Whitby was empty and Durham region was empty. I think that there's 13 or 14 breweries operating in Durham region now, and there's 4 in Whitby. So it's we did kind of start it something. There's a lot of people that have opened up, and yeah, it really was a wasteland, and there was no good options. I remember the first keg of Great Lakes Brewery. They had Harry Porter and the vanilla something. And the about a week before we opened up, the very first keg of really cool craft beer came to Durham region. And prior to that, it was just nothing. You went to a bar or restaurant, forget it. It was just all macro beer. You couldn't get anything good. So it did kind of start something, which is cool. There was a need for it, obviously, to have so many operating breweries now.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what you said a little earlier, in terms of when you were speaking to the Alcohol and Gaming Association individual, and you sort of predicted what that individual, I believe, asked you what's your 4 core, or like what's your specialty brand going to be?
Yep.
And you sort of said, no, well, we're going to do a lot more than that. So it seemed to me was sort of you predicted sort of the flow of culture of craft beer a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a pure prediction, or maybe just I don't know. There might have been a bit of we were kind of talking about it, this week at work, and it was kind of funny because you go back. We always have this kind of inferiority complex, because we're just regular guys that open up a brewery, and but we did it before everybody, and there was a playbook that didn't exist, and we started kind of ticking off some boxes, and people started seeing that and going like, hey, maybe they're onto something, and obviously it works, because most breweries now, their biggest the biggest hurdle that they run into as a small brewery is having to be shackled to one brand at the LCBO or 2 brands at the beer store or whatever. The rest of it is just coming out with new stuff, and if you're not creative, it makes it very, very difficult to run a brewery right now. And if you don't have a good creative team, man, you're really going to have a hard time, right? Because if you don't have something new, oh man, nobody likes that. And I mean, like I can be honest, there are for the for people that, let's say for an IPA, for people that really love IPAs and understand the hops, they can pick up the nuances of what they're tasting, whether it be you get more mango or more pineapple, or a gooseberry flavor, but to most people, it's just hoppy, like they're just it's all grapefruit juice to them, and they're not picking up on the nuances. But if you have the same IPA and somebody's trying to boost their untapping ratings, then you're just like, I've already had that before, and it's like, man, we made this once like 6 years ago and you're not going to buy it again. And it's like, nope, I've already untapped it, not interested.
Untapped it, done.
Yeah, it's true. And no, I mean, it's good and bad, right? Because I often wonder if some breweries out there over time have just been like, yeah, redo that recipe and just put a new label on it and we'll put a new Untapped on it and see if it sticks this time. I'm sure somebody's tried it. We haven't, but I'm sure somebody has.
I think that happens sometimes. I think so. Yeah,
probably.
Sure of it.
Ian, you started the brewery with 4 of your friends. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Do you see that as a positive? Would you recommend doing something like that? Starting a business with 4 individuals who you are close with? Not even that specific, but in terms of opening a brewery, do you see it wise as going into that process as a partnership setting, as opposed to a benevolent dictatorship where someone has all the power?
Oh, believe me, there's some days where I wish I could just be like, crack that whip and be like, it's my way or the highway, right? Like, it's like it, but we all feel that, right? And there's a yes and no to that. Like the guys that when we first opened, we all had a very common goal. It was very important to us to make great beer and stick it to the man, and in our own ways that we could, and the only way that we thought that we could. So the best thing about it is, having, people that are equal to you, they got your back and you got theirs. So it's not all on your shoulders. I think about these, some of the businesses or breweries, and they are, one guy at the top, and, hell or high water, if they make it, it's, he gets a pat on the back, but if they die, it's his fault too. So I look at that, and there are some days where you come in and you go like, what is going on here, and I've got 2 really good friends that are able to say, listen, man, don't worry about it, I got this, Ian. And like, don't worry, it's going to be good, right? And rightfully so, I can do that for them as well. So over time, our friendship has certainly gotten deeper, which is great. And they're basically family members to me now, which is fantastic. And truthfully, when we first opened up 10 years ago, we were casual acquaintances that loved beer, and we were kind of doing it's like, I kind of know girlfriend's name, but it was beer first, right? Like we were every time we got together, we talked about nothing but beer and making beer. So, a lot of that, I don't know, maybe it's a guy thing for us that we just kind of were like, single-minded in our pursuit of beer, and that we didn't even talk about our personal lives. It's like, I remember, early on when we first were opening up or in the process of building, and I'm like, man, I got 2 kids, like I got to get out of here tonight. It's like 11 o'clock, right? And it's like, damn, you got 2 kids, Ian. So, but over, 9 years, like here we are, and it's like, yeah, they are family. And I know that at any moment, if something happens or I need them, they're there for me, which is great. And I'm there for them. So, yeah, yes and no, right? Like the more the merrier, maybe. I don't know. I'm the type of guy, and we all are at 5 Paddles, where we want to have that majority ownership, and we don't want to have like a team of investors. So everything that we built with our own investment and our own hands, and that way we're beholden to nobody. We'd always wanted to stick it to the man, and man, if I had an investment group that was hounding me going like, Ian, I really think you should do a light lager for this summer, because people on the golf course like to chug light lagers, right? I'd be like, fuck you, I am done with this.
Sounds like the man. Sounds like a man talking.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. Not for me. It's not like, I mean, maybe somebody can do it, but not me.
Fair enough. Reap what you sow and do what you love.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
a very common theme in craft beer, though, right? It stems from that creativity and what you put into it, you get out of it, and that mentality, which we see a lot.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny. I had a conversation with another brewer and brewery owner just recently, and like I said to him, I'm like, man, we all get into this thing for the wrong reason. We all kind of get into it because we think we know better, or there's this I want a pat on the back for people to tell me that my beer's good, where it's like, good job, Ian, good job, this tastes great. Or whether, you want to be, prove something to somebody. And it's like, I don't know, maybe we all got into it for the wrong reason, but I think the biggest reason why is because we just love it. We love the hard work. We love the accolades, and we love the challenge, because it is a challenging business.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. What would you say is maybe one of the top challenges you faced since 2013, since you guys opened?
You know what? It seems like once a year there's always some sort of a challenge that kind of pops up, right? Like, and it's unexpected ones. I certainly, COVID has been one of the biggest challenges that we have all had to face. You had to basically wake up every morning and say, what's going on? Where are we, and what are we going to do? Because yesterday I was pouring pints, and the tap room was full, and I just dropped off some kegs at a licensee and at the LCBO, and today I just locked the door. And here I am. We're how do we run our business when we have the door locked and we can't even talk to anybody? So obviously that was certainly the biggest challenge that we've had since 2013. But there's all sorts of little challenges. You have difficulty sourcing proper ingredients, running out of misinterpreting your contract for hops, and you end up buying enough for 2 years, and or buying enough for only 6 months, and you're like, man, where's all my Citra? Holy crap, where am I going to find Citra? And everybody on the forums, they're all talking, going like, if anybody has 600 pounds of Citra, I'll take it off your hands, man. And everybody's like, yeah, me too. I'm following. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges like that. And you look and go, I've been using this label guy forever, and he can't help me anymore. And there's all sorts of a million little things, because there's so many inputs that go into beer that it's just overwhelming sometimes. It's tough to predict, and luckily we have been over the years being able to figure out how to predict properly, but it's still difficult. It is still hard, and COVID just threw in that huge wrench.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
What makes you guys, or what made you guys, the five of you, different? Because you mentioned, well, we're just five guys that love beer and we're passionate, but lots of groups of five guys like beer and they don't open breweries necessarily. So what was give us some more detail on the catalyst or the spark that came together to go for a venture such as this?
Yeah, you know what? Like, it's odd. I remember Mike, one of the other owners. He's the brewer at Five Paddles now, and I remember him. He said to me, we were dropping off beers in Ottawa for the I can't even remember what it was called, but there's a homebrew competition at the Ottawa Beer Fest, and he's like, hey, come with me, Ian. I want to show you this brewery. And I was like, okay, why not? I'll take the day off and go drink some beer in Ottawa. He's like, I'll drive. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm definitely in. And so we were dropping off these beers, and he took me to Broadhead Brewing. And at the time, they were doing renovations, and they had started off with a 100-liter system, and they were home brewers, and they were, I don't know, I think they were brewing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they're in the process of jumping up from 100 liters to a 1,200-liter system. So, increasing by over tenfold. And they had done that in about 9 to 10 months. And, we're talking to the guy, and, he's like, who are you? Where are you from? Because, Mike was, I'm just standing there going like, cool, look at all this stainless steel, right? And I'm like, look at that giant bag of grain. And, Mike's like, so who did you talk to at the Alcohol and Gaming Commission? Who was it? Did you get your license from the excise, duty? And, the guy's like, where are you from? You know, like, and he's like, are you sure you're just home brewing? You're asking a lot of very, you know, direct questions, right? And I was like, no, man, we're just home brewers, relax, you know. And then we kind of laughed, and he's like, all right, well, I got stuff to do, so if you got no more questions, right? And so we went out into the parking lot, and I'm standing there going like, wow, wasn't that amazing? You know, like, that's great. And then Mike whips out a binder and he goes, hey, you know, I've been working on some numbers. I was like, what are you talking about? You know? And he whips out, yeah, he starts, you know, rhyming off, and he's like, if we make this amount and we do that, we could make that. And, you know, and I'm a numbers guy, so he kind of hit me in my soft spot. And I'm like, okay, well, oh, all right. And I'd had a couple of beers, and I'm like, yeah, the math does kind of work out. And, you know, I was like, oh, hell, man, we need a couple more people, right? So we kind of gathered together. Mike was the catalyst for sure for Five Paddles, and we gathered together kind of a good crew to open up. And we're all crazy enough to kind of do it. And it was kind of, we say it was safe, right? So we say things like, oh, well, you know, I open up a brewery and not quit my day job and not put my house up on the market, you know, and it was kind of safe, but it wasn't. We were taking a huge risk, and we were dumping quite a bit of money into it initially, because it took us almost about 10 months to actually get licensed. And at that point, we're hemorrhaging cash, and having to have an operating brewery with no license was just, it was awful. So, there were a lot of little things that took a lot longer than expected, but I don't know. Then once we opened, it was just like, grab on, guys, this is crazy, let's go. And it was just, we all just jumped in head first and just took off.
Just give it your all, 100% all the way. That's cool. And I kind of wanted to come back to your creativity a little bit, because as I normally do when we have a guest on our show, we peruse the website and check out the beers, because if you didn't know, Andy and I are avid beer drinkers. And I noticed there's a couple like really interesting styles, specifically that you guys have a Russian Imperial Braggot and then a Graf, which I've seen them very, very seldomly in Southern Ontario or anywhere for that matter. So maybe you can go over those two styles, because they are pretty unique.
Yeah, two styles that I love, right? So we do have a Russian Imperial Braggot, and we've done it infrequently, about once a year. I was lucky this summer. We were, thanks to a lot of changes to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission licensing, we were able to start going into farmers markets. And I met this great guy, Chuck, the honey guy. I was beside the popcorn guy, Andy, and, there was this, Tony, the pepperoni guy. And I met Chuck, the honey guy from Kiss My Bees. And I said to him, like, I would love to use your honey in this Russian Imperial Braggot. And he said, absolutely. So, you go and buy like, I forget how much we bought off them. It was like, 300 pounds or something. Like, it was an obscene amount of it was crazy expensive too. But yeah, so the style of Braggot is kind of that beer mead combination. So we had thought about doing a lower alcohol one, but we said, no. If we're going to do it, you got to go high. So 11.9, we went as high as legally possible. And it's a mix between a Russian Imperial Stout and a mead. So a massive amount of honey, huge high alcohol. It's as dark as a stout, not as dark as some Imperial Stouts can get, just because there's so much honey that's being added to it. But it's an incredible beer because it tastes almost citrusy right off the bat when it's really cold. And as it warms up, all the floral notes come out, and it gets really, really amazing. And none of that kind of molasses and kind of bitter ashiness that you can get from a Russian Imperial Stout. It's just this, super, amazingly sweet, even though it's high alcohol, but very easy to drink. So it's dangerous, right? Like at 12%, it goes down easy, and it is dangerous. But the Graf, we've always wanted to do a Graf. And again, I was talking to Clay from, at the farmer's market. He was the fruit guy from Niagara, and he had cider. And I said, hey man, how much, I need like 300 liters of cider. And he's like, yeah, I can totally hook you up. So I was like, great, let's make it happen. And I had always wanted to do a Graf, but I kind of wanted to do it properly, right? And the idea behind a Graf, it sounds so medieval, like something that Sir Arthur and around the round table would drink, where it's half cider, half beer. But it's a style that was created by Stephen King.
Yeah, I was
was
reading
like,
that. It was
you gotta be
gotta
kidding
be a
me, man. I
cool
had for
background.
years thought, yeah, it was some traditional medieval Viking type thing. No, Stephen King. Thanks, bud.
Really?
So yeah, he created this style, and we were able to do it. So what we did was, instead of fermenting with the apple cider, we added it in like just mere moments before canning, and so and pasteurized it. So you're able to get that really, really strong sweet apple flavor with the beer flavor in behind it, and it's a really cool style. It's something that we wouldn't have done years ago, but man, it's kind of where we are right now. And it's funny because in my mind, with things like doing both of those, I don't feel like it's pushing the styles and pushing our boundaries, but to some people it may be. But for us, it's like, yeah, they're really cool beers.
Yeah, no kidding. Definitely would love to try something like that. I'm just simply for the fact because you don't see it too often. But and you said it's not pushing the stout too much, but some of the other ones, like your bourbon barrel aged Russian Imperial triple bock.
Oh yeah, conditioned on molasses, cinnamon, cocoa, and vanilla beans. Yeah. The other ones is our slushy beers, right? Like we did all these crazy slushy beers where we added fruit puree right before canning, and we've got the blood orange and tangerine. We've got a sweet cherry lime. We did one for one of our Halloween beers, because we always do 5 Halloween beers, and we do one every year called Jump the Pumpkin Shark, and that kind of pokes fun at styles that have jumped the shark, or styles that were cool that season. So we've done pastry stouts, we've done sours, we've done spiced beers, but this year we had to do a slushy or smoothie beer. And so that one, we added about 300 pounds of pumpkin puree, 25 kilos of graham cracker crumb, a ton of vanilla into it, and it was thick. It looked like, it looked like you'd gone to Booster Juice and said, I want the pumpkin pie in my Booster Juice. But the crazy thing is, it worked, man. It totally worked. I thought that we were going to finally kind of, get everybody to expose them and go like, oh, this is actually kind of gross, but it tasted great.
What can we put in that they will eventually just not drink it?
I've yet, I think the only one that we ever came upon was mustard. And we had thought, one of the guys had this idea of a Dijon Saison. We tried several different types of mustard. So we're talking, yellow mustard, Dijon mustard, powdered mustard, with our Saison base, and they all tasted like shit. We were like, okay, I know that we don't have any rules and we'll kind of push the boundaries here, but this is awful. So no, that's a no.
Dijon
the
Saison.
line in the sand.
Yeah, it sounds great, right? The Dijon Saison, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, sounds
cool.
Man, it tasted awful.
Yeah, sounds like a French perfume. Well, that was going to be my question, Ian. You guys obviously don't shy away from experimentation, but where do you draw the line? Maybe mustard?
Yeah, I think mustard. And the other thing is that this may sound a little crazy to say, but I'm not a big fan of peppermint or mint in beer. I can just see the Untapped ratings writing themselves, about toothpaste or A535, and I'm like, it's one that we have avoided since we've opened, and I'd like to kind of keep going that way. That being said, I feel like it's almost a challenge where I have to try it. I have to do some sort of a chocolate, mint type idea, but I don't know. That one's kind of it's so polarizing, and there's a lot of good breweries that have made really good beers, and I can't live through those Untapped scathing reviews that we'll get for a mint beer.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Ian, you mentioned that I really liked what you said. It was pretty passionate about if you're a brewer or if you own a brewery, you really have to dig deep and like the entire process, or at least find some positivity with every aspect of brewing. It can't just be, I think that was the Julia Childs quote.
Yeah.
Is there anything, and you seem like a very positive, energetic, upbeat guy, but is there anything after your almost decade career in the business, is there anything that you still, part of owning a brewery. This part of it is, it's just an annoying facet that you just have to grin and bear.
Oh man, doing the taxes, that sucks. Holy jeez.
You're
Are
a
you
numbers
kidding me,
guy,
man?
though, you said.
I am, but like I like the numbers, but sitting down every month and spreading my sheets and getting on Excel and I don't know how people do that every day. It sucks. That's like the worst part of it. Certainly just doing that little bit of paperwork. Man, that it just drains me. I avoid it at all costs. I mean, you do have to figure out the good thing is that it trains me to understand all of my numbers and what I have to do and how to do it, right? So I do find some positivity with what we do, and it's kind of key to understanding where you're going and what you've done, and by doing it every month, you're able to see a snapshot of what your abilities are, and to compare from year to year. It's always kind of this running tally in my head of month to month, year to year. So it's but it still sucks. I hate that part of it. If I could get anybody to take that over for me, I would give it up in a heartbeat.
And what about what's the best part?
The best part has changed over time, right? Like, the best part for me was getting paid to actually make beer. Like I was getting paid to do my damn hobby, right? Like who gets that? And the notoriety was great. And now the thing that I like most about the way that our brewery is operating, and the way that a lot of breweries are, is that I get to make these deep connections with people, the people that I work with, the people that come into the brewery, the amazing people that are out in the community that are doing amazing things. And I've made some very good friends, and I've made some very good connections in the industry with people that I never would have had before. So my favorite thing now is definitely being a part of something bigger than me, and being a part of something that a lot of people have very similar experiences and interests. And I didn't think that it was like that. I thought I was some crazy guy in my basement making beer, and then I was like the crazy guy running a brewery. But there's a lot of incredible people out there, and the connections that I've been able to make, I think that's my favorite part of it now.
Well said. Yeah. I obviously, we've spoken, you're more than well aware of this, just on the statistics that we went over, just the influx of craft beer and craft breweries, particularly in a place like Southern Ontario or the entire province. Can you tell us what you think about this past decade of you rode the wave into this massive increase, this phenomenon, perhaps we could say, that is craft beer in the first quarter of the 21st century. Can you tell us what you think about that? Is it sort of daunting to you? We talked a little bit about predictions. Do you see this growth as a healthy market? Do you think, what's that expression? A high tide lifts
all ships rise.
Yeah. Are you bullish about the market and its progression? Do you think that some people use the term, are we in a craft beer bubble? What do you think about the market?
I remember when we first, prior to opening up, I sat in on a talk by Ray Daniels, and he was talking about the bubble in the US, and was like, just you wait, it's gonna happen here, right? I was sitting there going like, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, right? because I know better, right? And there's a little bit of truth in what he was saying. I mean, always look to the US to see what happens, right? And is there a bubble? Is it going to burst? Man, I don't know. I never really thought that it would get to be like this, like I never thought that I could walk in, like, truthfully, if 10 years ago when I was looking at opening up a brewery, if the brewing industry was as robust as it is now, I would have just traveled around and drank great beer, like I wouldn't have actually opened a brewery because there was no need for it. There's great beer everywhere, right? So I don't know, it's really hard to predict it. Is it good? I think it's great because, we're hitting into a very mature part of it, like there's an immature part where everybody's like, oh, I know everything about IPAs when you went to a party, right? Where it's like, I only drink IPAs. And, you get that guy with the big beard and, that classic craft beer drinker. Those days are gone. And it's just a casual thing where people are at a point where they go, I like what I like. And, I don't have to drink craft beer all the time to prove a point. But when I really want to enjoy myself, there's good opportunity out there, and I think that might translate more to when you go to restaurants, because I find in the US, you go into any restaurant, you can get, a great IPA, great Imperial Stout. I was in Las Vegas, it was 36 degrees outside, and I was drinking an Imperial Stout on their patio. So I mean, it's normal there, right? And it's not here. So I think that the licensee thing may change, where cooler beer at kind of average places, if you know what I mean. You get that average kind of restaurant that's a bit of a chain or a franchise, and they'll start having to have cooler beer. So I think that might be something new for the future. Certainly post pandemic, they're going to have to stand out somehow, and just doing the same shit they did before, it ain't going to work.
Fair enough. I would love to see more craft beer in more places.
Mm-hmm.
If there's anything that comes from this quote unquote bubble, maybe that'd be a good start.
Yeah, please. That would be great, because I hated going out. I most of the time when I go out for dinner, if they don't have craft beer, I'm just like, you know what? I'll just have a Coke or Pepsi.
Yes, I'm not the only one.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Do you see Ian being a bit of a senior player? Funnily enough, you're not even 10 years old, but being an older brewery compared to the rest of the craft breweries in Ontario, do you see that as a strong advantage? Obviously, being first is good, but being best is probably best. But do you see an inherent advantage with having some longevity to your brand as opposed to the majority of craft breweries that are maybe only 4 or 5 years old?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, like when we first started, it's been a bit of a weird thing, because we were vanguards, and there was nobody else to kind of look to. Like, not to say that the community wasn't open, right? Because it was. There was a lot of great breweries opening up when we did. A lot of great people that were open arms to us. I remember going out to Bo's, and there's Steve Beauchesne, and he's like, hey, you're the Five Paddles guys. I'm like, damn, Steve knows my name, and I was like, this is crazy. But I think the big thing for us is that we kind of don't sweat a lot of the small stuff anymore, where we look and go, we still have to it's not a proving ground for us anymore. It's more like, how can we look at where the industry is going and, still use our creativity and, intensity to still push where we're going and push the industry again, right? Because, there's no fear there. We've failed before. We've made mistakes, and it's like, we don't mind making another mistake and being like, well, we've had a few beers where we're like, we're going to take over the world with this beer because it's so damn good, and nobody liked it. And so, I look and I go, well, we can take risks, and it's okay that nobody's going to like it, because, we can move on and we can make another beer. And, the ones that we never expect actually end up to be the ones that do the best, so we just keep banging it away and going like, what would be cool. And the hard part now is finding where to draw inspiration, like the inspiration at one time was off of other breweries and, what was happening with ingredients that were available in the brewing industry. And it's changed, now we're looking into the culinary industry and saying, what are they doing? And it's like, if you can start to kind of be a little bit more progressive in your mindset and a little bit less rigid in what you do to make the beer, you can be a lot more creative, and it makes it a lot more fun. But it is, I don't know. I'm not scared to take that risk making a new beer, and I'm not afraid. We're not afraid to offend somebody. You know, we've had enough people come in and be like, you know, this coconut beer tastes like shit. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine. You're allowed. I don't care.
Very upfront comment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ian, we're coming up on our hour here, but I would like to know, opening up a brewery in 2013 and opening up a brewery in 2021, or even we're almost in 2022. What's a component that exists now that almost maybe seems mandatory or seems pretty crucial or important that you really didn't need or wasn't so prominent 9 or 10 years ago? Is there anything, whether it be equipment, a staff member, something to do with your brand? Is there anything that really comes to mind that really has changed in this 9 or 10 year period?
For us or for the industry? Either. With us, you know what? When we first opened up, there were so few of us running the show. You know, I think for us, it's the family of the employees and all of us working together. You know, that is essential. And we've got such a good team at the brewery, and you know, everybody there is, you know, just so dedicated, and they somehow, for some reason, believe in, you know, the same dream, and not in a way that's, you know, how can I put it? Not in a way that's, you know, aggressive, where it's like, you know, we're the best and we've been around and we know what we're doing. They're not like that. They're just like, man, we're doing some great things here, and there's a lot of really good beer, and we're doing cool events, and we're you know, they all kind of believe in the movement of what we're doing. I jokingly was talking to somebody in the summertime and I said, like, we're this crazy cult, you know, without the you know, avoiding of paying taxes, but we're like this crazy cult that the people that come to work with us, they love working there. And you know, it's like, and I love the fact that they love working there, which is cool, and they all kind of believe in it. I don't know, so like, we didn't need a lot of people to run it before, but we do now. And I think that that's kind of cool that we do have a very tight group of people that still like coming to work, you know, which is kind of cool. Like that's needed now more so than ever for Five Paddles to operate. You know, we didn't need it then. You only needed a couple of crazy guys to be able to hold on to it, but it does get bigger, and it you know, there's more moving parts and components to it. So I need them, you know, more than they need me. That's for damn sure.
It's good. I like that. Yeah, we're getting a workforce, but not necessarily workforce. It's like a, you know, I guess a large family, right? Everyone wants to be there. Everyone wants to contribute, wants to do good things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful place to stop. Ian
Fantastic.
Mills from Five Paddles Brewing Company in Whitby, Ontario. Ian, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us.
Oh, thanks for talking to me, guys. I'm glad some people like to hear my voice as much as I do.
We love it. We
That
look
was
forward
great.
to look forward to chatting with you again.
Cool. Thanks,
Absolutely.
guys.
Thanks, Ian. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all our interviews and beer-related content. Remember, craft beer is here.